Today's gospel is the gospel of the Ascension. Mark chapter 16, verses 15 through 20. I'd like to focus on one perhaps not very obvious thing, and that is the Ascension as a symbol or an experience actually of an ending, a constructive experience of an ending. Endings can be unremarkable, ordinary, seamlessly as it were part of our days. They don't affect us at all. Or they may affect us positively or negatively. We're relieved. We're happy that the ending has occurred. Or else we're not happy. We're not relieved. We're despondent. Life couldn't go on without endings. They are part and parcel of not only every day, every moment of every day. There's something ending. Now, do we see it as promise or threat? It's as well for us to reflect on this in our times, because I suggest to you that in our times, there's a lot of endings happening, significant endings, institutions, societies, ways of thinking, cultural patterns, religious customs, expectations, values. So many of these taken for granted parts of our lives are being called into question. We're being forced to question. And in some instances, we're being forced to let go. Some of these things that we grew up with are receding into history. Maybe they've already gone from memory. Recall Jesus' comment as recorded by John's Gospel, chapter 12, verse 24. Unless the grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains but a grain. But if it does fall on the ground and it does die, it bears fruit. I think there's something in that perception that reminds us that endings are best thought of as transitions. We are constantly being asked to fall into the ground and die. Let go, move on, grasp the new reality that is there before us. Now, the passion and death of Jesus would have been a momentous moment for the disciples. We can't even imagine it. But it was certainly an ending. They crashed into a wall, as it were, thinking that life would go on with Jesus. It didn't. Certainly not the way they thought it might go on. Is it possible that the experience of the Ascension is, in fact, the disciples coming to terms with this reality? It is an ending. Affirm it, acknowledge it, surrender to the truth of it. But like all endings, it contains the seeds of something new, a beginning. We step from one way of being in the world into another. Whatever the disciples did in fact experience at the time of the Ascension, as we remember it, they were clearly made aware that the time with Jesus physically present among them gone forever. If Jesus was not to be physically present any longer, did that mean he would cease to be present altogether? This must surely have risen to their minds. Well, we know the answer to that question. A beginning is born out of that ending. His physical presence had ended, but he continues to be present with the disciples. Luke, for example, in chapter 21, verse 33 says, "Heaven and earth will pass away, will come to an end, but my words will not pass away." It is as if every ending is in some way a sacramental reminder of the eternal, the unending. A new way of the disciples being with him and he with the disciples has begun. And this is highlighted in the command we read in Mark's Gospel: go into the world and proclaim the good news to the whole creation. It is now the role of the disciples to radiate Jesus' presence, to be Jesus' presence everywhere. Then Mark comments, and the Lord worked with them. God in Christ, by the power of the Spirit, is always present to us. A new era has begun. It might help to recall the ritual of the Paschal candle at the Easter Vigil. There, the celebrant traced the sign of the cross on the candle, marked the numerals for the year, and put incense capsules into the candle saying, Christ yesterday and today, the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. All time belongs to him and all ages. To him be glory and power through every age and forever. Amen. The Feast of the Ascension expands the truth of Easter. In this era of endings, our era, we would do well to remember that Paschal candle and its inscription.